Welcome, everyone, to the Cardano Effect podcast, episode 76. The purpose of this podcast is to take high-level developer information and projects that are occurring within the Cardano space and break them down into bite-sized, consumable pieces of information for everyday use. I'm your host, Philippe, and let's get this podcast started. Rick and myself are the hosts of the Cardano Effect podcast. We'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. We have a very special guest on the program today. Rick will be introducing him very shortly. He is a veteran of the show. You'll all know him and you'll all recognize him. Key, look at our shirts. We're both matching today. Rick and I myself, we both have our Emurgo shirts on, so that's just a quick hint. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. Remember, if you like what we're doing, if you do not like what we're doing, just hit that subscribe button. It really doesn't matter. You just need to push our SEO up and up and up. We're trying to grow this podcast as large as possible. We're still in some bearish times, but when we hit that bullish cycle, there are going to be tons of new people in the crypto space, and they're going to be looking for more information about the Cardano project or blockchain in general, and this is a perfect place for them to start. So without further ado, let's get right into the mix of things. None of what we say on this podcast is financial advice. Remember, you are your best financial advisor, and if you don't think you are, you need to find someone who's qualified to do so. Rick, how you doing this evening? It is a Monday evening on President's Day. How are you doing? We're recording it on President's Day. It will be released later, but how's everything going?
Hey, it's going great, Philippe. Thanks for asking. I'd like to give a shout out to the Cardano Foundation for sponsoring this podcast. Thank you very much, Cardano Foundation. We appreciate your support. And I would also like to get on to our special guest, Mr. Nicolás Arqueros. He's been with the podcast twice already. He's calling in from New York City, right, Nikolas?
Yeah, New York City.
Okay. And now he's wearing two hats. So he came on the podcast before as the Emurgo Chief Technology Officer. He is also still Emurgo's Chief Technology Officer and now a council member on the Cardano Foundation. How do you do it, Nikolas? When do you sleep? Let's start with that. How do you wear all these hats? When do you sleep, man?
I don't sleep bad. And that's basically what people tell me. Like, oh, you look tired. Yes, I'm tired. But totally worth it.
It is. How are you enjoying your new position here at the Cardano Foundation?
Oh, it's like really fun because sometimes from Emurgo, we will like work with a specific perspective. But as you know, Cardano Foundation has different mission statements. That's like something completely different than what Emurgo does. And also even like the culture behind the Cardano Foundation is different because as you guys know, or maybe some people know, Emurgo is more like Japanese, like Asian back, and Cardano Foundation is more like European, Swiss. So it's like totally different culture. So that part is like actually pretty interesting.
Yep. And as a reminder to viewers who hadn't seen the previous podcasts, where are you originally from?
I'm originally from Chile, and that's why you can hear like this fake accent from a Spanish background. But I've been living in the US for like the past like 5 years. And it's like a weird mix. Like I work with people in Japan, in Europe, but I live in the US and I'm originally from South America. So I just need to do something in Africa and Antarctica, and I feel like I want to have everything covered.
You're a very well-traveled man, Nikolas. Very well-traveled. Hey, I would like to hit you up with the first question, Philippe. Is it all right if I get my ambush question out of the way?
Go for it.
Okay,
Oh
Nikolas.
Let's do it.
I have an ambush question. Okay. I've had a lot of people asking me, is Cardano going to do a bug bounty? And so what do you think of that? Is Cardano should we do a bug bounty? Is there one in the plans? What do you think? What's your opinion on the whole thing?
Okay, so I'm just going to talk about my perspective, and this is going to be like my personal perspective. It's not going to be like from Cardano Foundation or Emurgo. So the first part is that I think bug bounties are like amazing. They work like pretty well, and they're like super necessary. For example, there are other cryptocurrencies out there. For example, Monero, and it works like pretty good. And if they have any bug related to like the protocol or anything, they could like start like showing breaking the privacy, which is like the main feature. So it's like really important for them. And they have like this like really important bug bounty that has like constantly been working. And for us, I think it's also like really important to have the bug bounty because we are actually a more complex platform. Because As you guys know, we have first generation with Bitcoin, second generation with Ethereum, and third generation with Cardano. So besides having like proof of stake, also we're going to have a more complex smart contract platform that also is going to offer more features and also some more things related to security. So it's important to actually have this bug bounty. And this is the first part. So I'm all over bug bounty. But the second part is that also we need to be like really precise at what moment this makes sense. Because, for example, if you're going to be driving a car and you're going to be like in a race, when the race starts, you don't press the turbo right away. You wait until you have been like driving a little bit, and then you press the turbo to get the speed. So bug bounties are like a little bit like a turbo security. You don't put them right away because a lot of bugs are going to be being able to be found by the QA team or like normal users. So we shouldn't be spending money on bugs that are going to be easily be found. We want to spend money on like bugs that are like really difficult to be found. And for example, I don't know if you guys read about this bug that happened in everything that's DeFi in Ethereum like 2 or 3 days ago. So DeFi is everything related to decentralized finance, where this works a little bit with like stable coins and getting like interest rate. So basically what happened is that in only one transaction, someone was able to manipulate the market. And what this hacker, I guess, did is basically it asked for a huge loan in one transaction for something that's called like a flash loan. And with that, he was put the price down of like the tokenization of Bitcoin. That's called WBTC in Kyber network. And then he did some stuff with like Compound, DXDY, and was able to like with some like really interesting like finance trick that I don't want to enter because it's not the point. He was able to make like 350K, and that's like almost like a really hard hit for the Fulcrum. That was like the platform that got the hit. And so this type of stuff is like the stuff that you want to put like bug bounties, because everything looks great, but you actually want a lot of people looking at trying to break things. And if you're going to be offering money for them, they're going to actually be like really interested in like getting these rewards, because although this wasn't like a hack in code, it was like manipulation, or it was like pushing what is expected to be used. And so probably no one's going to say, I did it, because people are going to get mad at that person or that group of persons. So I think bug bounty is like pretty good for this type of case.
Okay. So that was like an exploit or something like that, like a bug that could have been found with a bounty program?
Maybe. It's difficult to tell because it's something that I would have never thought. And when I read it, I actually got kind of like excited, like, oh my God, that's a pretty cool exploit.
We'll try it.
Yeah, I know if you had somebody there, you're probably going to be like, freaking Nico, I hate you, but it's pretty cool.
It sounds like a heist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So as far as Cardano is concerned, it sounds like you have to time it right. Like you don't want to do bug bounty too early, or you're going to be wasting money on simple stuff. Maybe later in the game, after security audits, after it's been hit pretty hard, then it might be time to do a bug bounty. Once it's out there and running, and hit it. I guess that's what it sounds like. Yeah, pretty much.
Yep. Pretty much. That's a pretty good summary of what I was trying to say.
Cool. No, great. Thanks. I learn a lot from you every time. Every time you're on a program, I always learn something new. It's always a good day. Always a good day.
Speaking on every time you're on the program, this is your third time on the Cardano Effect podcast. You were on episode 2 and episode 35 as well with Ruslan. You actually, a fun fact for everyone who's listening and viewing this, Nico was our first guest. I mean, technically Sebastian was our first guest, but Nico was our first outside of the Cardano Effect guest. So he's a legend, and everyone recognizes you in the space. Everyone knows Nico. If you're associated with the Cardano project, you know who you've heard of you. So, and things have changed since we last spoke with you. You're now the council member. You're now a council member on the Cardano Foundation. You are CTO at Emurgo. We've asked you this previously when you're on the Cardano Effect podcast. Can you take us through a day in the life of Nico? What does the day constitute for the Cardano Foundation versus what does your day constitute as in Emurgo? I mean, we are now within the incentivized testnet, and we weren't in the incentivized testnet when we last spoke with you. So I'm sure your duties have changed within Emurgo, and you're wearing a new hat within the foundation. What exactly do you do? What's your day-to-day routine?
Okay. Maybe I'm going to start with the beginning of my week, and then everything else is going to make sense. So basically, I start working on like after lunch on Sundays, and I start like preparing the entire week because as I mentioned before, Emurgo is an Asian-based company, and I live in New York. So usually, like evening on a Sunday is when people in Tokyo and in Singapore start connecting. And I want to have everything prepared for them. So I usually start working before them. So when they start like connecting, I have everything ready. So usually I start working like after lunch on a Sunday. And usually I start having meetings at 7, 8 p.m. I stay up like working with the team until like midnight or 1 a.m. And then what happens is that we also have people in Europe. So for our, like for daily calls or weekly calls, actually, I need to wake up at like 7:30, and I start having calls with people in Russia, in France, and Ukraine, and other countries that we have developers. And that's up to like 11 a.m. And then I will like shower, and then usually I will go to the office because I'm also part of D-Lab, which is like the acceleration program of Emurgo. And then I will spend like most of the day there. I will do some stuff for D-Lab, but also will do other stuff for Emurgo. And if there is like something specific that I need to do for the Cardano Foundation that we like is time sensitive, I also will do that. And then around 7 or 6 p.m., I will eat something, head back home, maybe go to the gym, and then I will be working again like at 9 or 10 p.m. until midnight or 1 a.m. and then sort of repeat.
Repeat until Friday midday?
Repeat until Friday, like 5 or 6 p.m. when like I'm burnt out.
I'll bet. And you still find time to go to the gym. Sorry, Philippe.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good.
Still find time to go to the gym and eat right?
Yeah, I'm super picky about what I eat. And that's the only two things that I try to do to compensate because I work a lot.
Okay.
Gym and like eating right.
Okay. I guess that's one drawback of being a decentralized company. I mean, you having to accommodate to all those different time zones. So you're pretty much on call all day and all night. So that must be rough. Yeah. But you also spoke about you're the senior investment advisor at D-Lab. And for anyone that's not familiar with D-Lab, D-Lab is a startup accelerator that explores topics in blockchain technology. So I wanted to ask you about D-Lab. Last time I was speaking with, I think it was Robert. I think you guys are on your third cohort, if I'm not mistaken. So this is like the third group of companies that are going through D-Lab. And you know, the sentence for D-Lab is working within topics within blockchain technology, but Emurgo is based within Cardano. So are any of the cohorts or are any of the companies that are working within the cohorts, are they any of them planning to use Cardano in the future? Or is it something that like Cardano smart contracts are so far out that they need to bring a product to market now in order to be a viable business?
Really good question. So currently we have two cohorts, and we want to start working in the third one. We have open applications for that, and probably we are going to start taking startups in April. And so the plan, as you guys know, Kogan and Chelly, maybe some people in the past will have thought that they will have arrived earlier. And those people include me. So a lot of the planification was based on that. And when it didn't happen, We have a partner, which is SOSV. It's a joint venture. So it's not only Emurgo behind this acceleration program, but also SOSV. SOSV is an investment firm that's one of the biggest ones in the US and actually in the entire world for like seed investments. They do around like 140 investments per year, and they're like close to do like 1,000 investments in total. And they have like pretty good startups. Maybe there's one in the space that you guys have heard, which is called BitMEX, which is one of the biggest startups in the space. And they're like really good. They know what they're doing, but they are like really good at accelerating startups, mentorship, planning how you are going to grow, how you raise money. But they need like a good complement related to like everything that's related to blockchain. What are the technologies that are coming up? What are the differentiators? What are some of the trends that are coming? So that's why we partner, because we complement each other pretty well. And because of that, we did a lot of planning. And when things didn't hit timeline, we just had to continue moving. Still, we tried to pick like a lot of different startups that are like pretty interesting and could like eventually move to Cardano when we have like the things that they need. And so on that side is like pretty cool. And some of the startups are like doing pretty amazing stuff. So I really hope that we get to that point that they're going to be like, oh, Nico, could you help us move into Cardano? I'm going to be like, hell, yes.
Okay. So the companies that are working right now, are they like working with Ethereum? Like how are they building their blockchain solutions since Cardano is just not ready?
So basically what happens currently is not only with the startups that we have, but also with the startups that are applying and other startups that even if they didn't apply, we get to talk to them. A lot of the startups, they just follow the users. So right now, most of them, they're building in Ethereum, but they don't like Ethereum at all. And whenever there is like a new option that's like better, they're like ready to jump as long as also it wouldn't affect their users. And also, it's important to not only focus in the startups because the startups, as startups, they don't have that much money and they're like trying to survive. They're like, some people say that basically being the founder of a startup at this stage is like having an airplane that's like going down and you're trying to fix as it's going to crash. So you don't have that much time and basically it's going to crash because you're going to run out of money. And if you run out of money, you're going to die. So taking this into consideration is that also you need sometimes more money to extend this like crash. And basically that's like going to investors. And also it's really important that investors have like faith in different projects because that way they're going to give money. So for example, if there is like a really bad blockchain project and a startup wants to build there, investors are going to be like, I can't give you money even if you like are doing something interesting because I don't have faith in that specific project. So for Cardano, investors have interest, but they're like waiting for like one of the milestones to be hit to like just diminish the risk involved because at the end, investors, what they look is like risk for every side. And so risk with the startups, risk with the industry, risk with the blockchain, risk with this, that. So they're trying to diminish that. And as we hit the milestones, it's also going to be easier for startups to move to Cardano because also investors are going to be more willing to give them money even if they move. So right now, most of the investors are just giving money for Ethereum because most of the noise and all the dApps and the users are actually in Ethereum. But I think it's going to be like not that hard to change that because we have like really good stuff coming up.
Okay. I'd like to ask you a follow-up question. It might be a little bit personal, but is there an opportunity cost for, I don't know, each month that we don't release smart contracts, that we lose some kind of unicorn company that goes and builds a solution on another blockchain project and they never come back to Cardano? Is time of the essence? Are there those gemstones that are being formed right now, or are we still a little bit too early and companies they have an idea, but they haven't really formed yet?
So yes, I think that's happening. But I think we are like still really, really early in everything that's related to blockchain because right now the protocols are still like getting shape. And for example, if we talk about Ethereum, which is like more closer to Cardano rather than Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is basically a store of value that's a better version of gold. So it's like a digital gold with like some extra features, but they don't have like Turing complete smart contract to do like more crazy stuff that you get to do in Ethereum or you're going to be able to do in Cardano. So I'm going to leave aside Bitcoin. But for Ethereum, everything that started with Ethereum was with this decentralized computer, which obviously it didn't make any sense at today's standards. And they have been like iterating between like different like rhetorics. And for example, the latest one in 2017 that was like really popular, it was like, oh, Ethereum is just a platform to launch ICOs. And ICOs are basically most of them, they're like just crap. Like it was
scams.
Scams like
there were
that.
Scams of 2018, 2016. Call it what it is. It's a scam. 3,000, 4,000 scams all run all over the planet.
Yep. And basically, if your platform, there are utilities to launch scams, maybe you're a scam.
Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't work out very well for Ethereum. Likely right now, they're like finding like some actually use cases. And the one that I actually believe, because Ethereum needs to be different than Bitcoin. If they're just another Bitcoin with like some programming capabilities that don't produce anything, it's like worthless. I prefer Bitcoin in that case. So the thing that right now Ethereum has that's really interesting, and also we're going to have it, and we're working for that in Cardano, is everything that's related to DeFi, decentralized finance. So what is decentralized finance? It's difficult to explain because it's such a broad concept. And if you ask like 10 people, maybe they're going to tell you like 12 different meanings of DeFi. But I'm going to try to give like one general understanding. So basically, everything that we have in the normal world is like, for example, we have a bank account where we store money, and we have like we have an account where we put money and we can pay things. But also sometimes we can have like something where we can buy stocks. For example, I don't know, I can have Fidelity or I can have Robinhood, which basically gives me access to the stock market, and I can buy, for example, Apple or Tesla, or I can like short Tesla or whatever. So decentralized finance, I try to take this concept and actually bring it into blockchain. And the question is why? Why would you do that? So the first part of that is that the main use for everything that's related to blockchain really is speculation. So taking into consideration Bitcoin, if it's going to replace gold, the price, I don't know if the price is going to go up or down, but assuming that it's going to replace gold, the price should go up. So a lot of people are buying because they expect that the price is going to go up. And the same for Ethereum. And what happens is that, for example, if someone has like $10,000 that want to invest in Ethereum, because this person, yes, is a huge believer of Ethereum. This person spent $10,000, but it says like, oh, I wish I had more money to put in Ethereum because right now there's going to be a bull run and I want to put more money. So actually can use DeFi with DAI to actually have a bigger leverage. And this does by creating a CDP that gives you DAI. And with this DAI, you can buy more Ethereum. So actually, if, for example, with $10,000, you will buy, for saying something, 100 ETH, maybe by doing this, you're going to be able to buy 200 ETH or like 300. You're like, oh my God, like I'm going to make way more money. And so this started like creating like an ecosystem because the CDP, this thing that you create to be able to leverage, also you need to pay interest. And this interest could be paid for other users that could be part of the system. And basically what happened, I'm not going to explain like all the different things to not complicate, but some people want to be long a certain cryptocurrency, and other people maybe they want to get interest rate. So that's why right now you have been hearing that, for example, if you hold like some type of stable coin in some specific platform, you can get like, I don't know, 7 or 8% interest rate. For example, with the Gemini USD, you can get like, I think 8.6% interest rate, which is pretty good because actually you have dollars. You're not like having like Ethereum or Bitcoin or any other token. So, and if you compare to another thing that's, for example, something normal for us, if you compare it with a savings account from like JP Morgan, probably it's going to be like, right now, I think it's like 1.6 or something like that.
It's pretty low.
Yeah, it's pretty low. And 1.6 for dollars or 8.6 for dollars, like, I think it's like an easy call. And this is basically what is happening with DeFi, actually, because all the system is being contracted in like people that want to go long, and they create like this thing that they're like starting paying interest that other people are receiving. Some like really cool things start popping out. And if we can think even way far away from this, is that, for example, in some countries in South America, which I'm from, we have a lot of problems with inflation. Maybe you're going to think right away of Venezuela. That case is like pretty crazy. I'm just going to talk about like maybe Chile and Argentina. So in Argentina, for example, in 6 months, there was like an inflation of like 40%, which is crazy. Basically means that if you have X amount of money in half of a year, that same amount of money is going to buy 40% less stuff. So if you go to the supermarket and you have your cart full of stuff, in 6 months, you're going to go to the supermarket and the car is only going to be 60% full for the same amount of money. And so it's like pretty bad. And also there are like some regulations related to how much dollars you can get. So for example, even if you get to find through remote work, like customers that are like in the US or in Europe and they pay you in dollar, you can't receive all those dollars because there is a cap of how many dollars you can receive and sell. So DeFi and blockchain is like pretty interesting because it could give people in South America and other parts access to dollars, and actually it could be like a digital bank account because you can get dollars and also you can put those dollars to get interest rate. And this started to get like pretty cool because, okay, now we have bank accounts that give you savings in the blockchain and it's completely like outside the control of a government that could go like NABs or like close account for regulations. You're like, I don't care. Everything's like safe. You're like, I just need to remember my mnemonics and I can access it anywhere. Cool. And this was like the first part of DeFi, but then I started like even expanding a little bit more. And something that came up that was like really interesting is that also right now the problem that happened is that last year everyone thought that was going to be the year of STOs, security token offerings. Basically, STOs are different than ICOs because ICOs is like pre-buying tokens that are going to be part of like a system or something. And most of them, they have been securities, means that they don't have value and you are pre-buying like a project. And STOs like basically say like, yes, we know that we are a security and we are going to work with regulators to get like the necessary permissions and everything. But the regulations are not quite there and they haven't been moving fast enough. So there are not that many projects that are like STOs. And the few ones that are STOs, like they're not that interesting. So people haven't been into them. And so, for example, if you to do some other cool stuff, or for example, if you would like to tokenize like the S&P 500 and the ETF from Vanguard, for example, you will have to go through so many regulations that it will take years. Through the usage of oracles, which are these things that can get prices from like the real world to the blockchain, you can recreate like real assets. And for these assets that they track the price in a decentralized manner, they wouldn't be, take with a grain of salt when I'm going to say this, but if it's not backed by a specific company, it's decentralized, I think they have some way to skip regulation in some way. I don't know the specific part, but it's like different to do like an STO. And that's what happening right now. So, for example, what I said before, you have bank accounts with savings, but now there is also this concept of like actually bringing like real assets to the blockchain. That could be like the S&P 500, it could be Apple stock, and that you can buy. But for example, us that we live in the US, it's like, oh, I can already buy those and for free using, for example, Robinhood. I don't even pay a commission. But for people that are in South America and other countries, it's really painful. For example, I wanted to help my dad to buy some stocks in the US market. And he's like middle class in Chile. And it was so difficult. The banks didn't give you access. And at the end, I had to go to a broker. And the broker basically told me, oh, yeah, no problem. We can give you access in like 2 days. You only need to start your account with like $300,000. Like, what? My dad doesn't have $300,000 to buy Apple stock. So that was like game over on that track for my dad. And now he actually doesn't have access. And he has like money to save, but he just depends of like a specific organizations that are enforced by the local government to put your savings, and they don't give you that much money. They're like pretty bad. So I think like through DeFi, we can actually empower like the entire world to have like a fair field to access to finance and to the like assets that actually can like sustain an okay quality of life for you when you want to retire and stuff. Because if your currency is getting hit with inflation, you don't get that many access to dollars. You don't have access to a stock market that are like a little more advanced, and you only have access to the stock market of your country because they want to pump that crap up. This is starting to look like pretty interesting. And so I'm like really interested in knowing how this is going to continue moving forward. And this is something that we are like following like pretty closely with IHK and the Cardano Foundation. So this is going to be one of the use cases for smart contracts.
Fascinating. I think, Rick, I wanted to ask you a quick question because, I mean, Nico brought up this whole idea of access. I mean, just this whole story about his dad not being able to invest in U.S. markets. We take it for granted here that you can buy stocks with Robinhood. I mean, there are even apps that let you jump in with other people and buy fractions of a stock. I mean, pretty much everyone can have access to the stock market, and the rest of the world is kind of locked off for U.S. markets. So, I mean, moving forward, Cardano, if they build a platform correctly, we could be a DeFi provider. I don't know. What are your thoughts on decentralized finance and that whole movement, Rick?
Well, I'll start with, when I was younger and it came to buying stocks, the barrier to entry, even in the United States, was very high. When people said, oh, you should start saving for retirement, you should start buying stocks. There was really no, unless your employer had some sort of retirement plan, most young Americans in their early to mid 20s cannot drop $5,000 on a real stock. The buy-in fee was so high. I was like, yeah, no. Now it's gotten a lot better. Plus, it's rolled in with different retirement packages, 401ks and IRAs. And I imagine long-term, it'll get there. Now, as far as DeFi goes, the main thing I've heard on that, or the main success I've heard of, is like the DAI token, or DAI, and Chainlink, but Chainlink's a different story. And really, what I would like to understand, I mean, I read how DAI works, where it's pegged to the dollar. And a lot of people have asked me about DAI on Twitter and other mediums, other forums. And some people say, well, the dollar's not stable either. Well, I mean, it's more stable. It's about like a yen or the euro. Okay, the euro, the yen, the dollar, those kind of tend to hang out in the same general conversion rate. And the pound. I always compare them. How many does it take to buy a hamburger, right? And usually it works out about right. You can use that as a reference point, for example. So I'm wondering how would something like DAI work on Cardano? Would we would launch Plutus. Well, actually, I want to walk it back. I need functional block diagrams. I need to see a visual diagram of how something works before I really understand how it works. And I'm a firm believer. If someone can't draw a diagram of how it's supposed to work, they don't know how it's going to work. Okay. So that's just how it is, man. If you can't draw a picture of it, you don't know how it works. So I don't know how it works. How are we going to get something like DAI on Cardano? Or how are you going to get something like Chainlink on Cardano? Does Plutus run on my computer here? Or does it run on a node that's running the blockchain? Or how does that work? I mean, let's start with the basics. I know nothing. How's it going to work on Cardano? How would DAI work on Cardano? I don't know. Nico, can you enlighten me, please? Just to give me the simple version, man. My head will explode.
The first clarification with something that I said before, I don't expect that people in South America are going to be like hand-picking stocks and buying them. But actually, right now, what's happening is that there is a lot of going on with index funds. And basically, it's like safer than hand-pick. And most of the time, index funds do even better than hedge funds. So that seems like, I don't know if you follow the S&P 500 ETF from Vanguard or some other stuff. It's like pretty good. And also you have like other ETFs that follow other stuff that's like REITs, which is related to real estate. And also you have other ones that follow like the treasury. So it's like pretty good. And they're like they're like pretty safe. So I don't expect that people are going to be hand-picking stocks. But if you have the stocks, you can create the index funds in the DeFi, which is going to be decentralized. So it's like step by step, you are creating all these things, which is pretty cool. And related to your comment about the dollar not being stable, it depends against what, because I don't know, it's like ADA is stable against ADA. I don't know, one ADA, tomorrow is one ADA. And dollars is like similar. And
it's relative.
But
to something.
Something that's really interesting that through the repo market, the Fed has been injecting money since like September when the interest rate of the repo market like peaked to like a little over 10%, and they have injected like over $500 billion so far. So the dollar can move pretty much, and that's why like I personally believe that the market has to like continue going up no matter what's happening, because basically the Fed is injecting liquidity to the market in a way that's like so obvious, so impactful.
It is. I'm a fan of the old school Ron Paul. I've been following Ron Paul since like 2004, 2006. And he explained very well that when a government injects money, when a government prints new money, it's the same effect as a tax or raising taxes. So every time you print money, it's the same as raising taxes or sucking in more tax money. The systematic effects are the same. Whoever gets that money first, when new fresh fiat is printed, whoever gets it first is the winner, which is usually large corporations and large banks, because the money still has more value to it. And by the time it trickles down to the individual, that money is worth less, and it devalues your money that you currently hold, because by that point, by the time it propagates through the system, financial systems, basically it affects the little guy the most. It devalues the little guy while benefiting the large corporations. And that's just one example. Kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but it's to follow up with what you were saying.
It's super complicated, and at the same time, it's super interesting because the Fed, they try to get to the specific target of inflation, which is around 2%. But how do you measure inflation? There are like 14 different ways to measure inflation. And right now, like, I think 12 out of 14, we are like over inflation in a range that could go from like 3% to 10%. But I don't know the specific one that I'm following, and they're like, oh, we haven't hit inflation yet. And they're like injecting money in the repo market, and this money is going to like hedge funds and specific banks, and they're like buying like even more stocks, and they're not like catching out. And when they catch out, usually like they will buy other stuff, and the money will get like distributed to the rest of the economy. But that's not happening. Just the money is like staying in this like pretty small, like not niche, but pool, and the stock continue going up. And but the people from like medium class, lower class, they're like, we don't see your salaries going up. We don't see like more money going around, but all the people with money are like, holy crap, I'm making a ton of money. So it's like really unfair. And going back, actually, sorry for for going out of track, but this topic is like super fascinating for me, and that's why I also resonate a lot with DeFi, because I see all these problems like in the current economy, and not only in the US. I also follow like what is the Chilean economy and stuff that's going in South America. And related to your question about like how you can bring a stable coin to Cardano, basically there are let's say, to simplify a lot, two ways to bring a stablecoin. So the first one, it could be like a stablecoin, for example, like Paxos, which basically what they say is that we are going to tokenize dollars that we have in a vault. So for every dollar that we have secure, we are going to have one token that represents that dollar. And also Gemini dollar does that same thing. And so that's the first part of like stablecoin. But the second part, not the second part, but in the other extreme, the first one is actually centralized, that you need to trust this company that actually has the dollars. And if the government knocks the door and they say like, I don't like that person, don't let them move those dollars, maybe they can basically freeze your account. And if you check the code for like the Gemini USD dollar, they can freeze your assets and you're like done, like nothing to do. And in the other side of the spectrum, you have solutions like DAI, which is from MakerDAO, which basically they try to be a decentralized stablecoin that tracks the price of the real dollar. And basically, for example, if they are in Ethereum, they need to have a way to bring to this to the blockchain what is the exchange rate between Ethereum and dollar. And they have some oracles to do that. I don't remember how many they have, but they have like a really small amount of oracles, which is like not the best case. I think they have like 8 oracles, but no one knows who they are, so it's safe in that way. I need to double check the number. I don't remember, but it's not like a real big amounts that you will consider, oh, decentralized, like just a few amount of people that bring the price. And with that, they have some algorithms where they try to, for example, if the peg is going to break lower, the one, which basically means that there is a lot of people selling DAI for Ethereum, what they're going to be doing, they're going to increase the interest rate for DAI. So people are going to be putting more Ether in the smart contract of DAI to create DAI. And that's going to start pushing like the supply of DAI up. And when there is like too much supply of DAI, they decrease the interest rate. So people are not going to be so interested in continue having DAI, so they're going to start selling it. So that way they can sort of like control the supply of DAI to the interest rate, which that goes through like voting. And who votes for this thing? It's the people that hold MakerDAO, that is like their token, and they have this governance system. But depending on how many tokens you have in MakerDAO, you get to like vote for this type of things. So it's like pretty interesting. And I think Charles mentioned in a tweet a few days ago that I don't remember the specific tweet, but I maybe HK is working on a stablecoin project or something like that, or he knows someone that. But stablecoin, I think, is like something critical, really, really important for the entire DeFi system. So it's something that we're going to have for sure when we're going to be launching Plutus.
Okay.
Yep. I recall that tweet. It said it will blow them away. I think so. The question then becomes, how would a stablecoin on Cardano blow them away? I mean, that's not for you to answer, but if you know, please, by all means.
I
It'll just run efficiently or something. So yeah. So I guess really thank you so much for this information, Nikolas. I totally appreciate it. And I think really the only thing left in that whole context of stable coins and DAI and how that works, the only question I really have left is, how does this plug into Cardano with Plutus? Is it just write a smart contract that does the same thing?
Yeah, so we have these two examples that I mentioned. So we have some stable coins that are like centralized and some other ones that are decentralized. So if they're centralized, it's as easy to just to create the tokens and have some extra permissions depending on what you want. And if you want something decentralized, you also need like a more complex system that also has the governance part, so you can decrease and increase the interest rate that I was mentioning, and also the other token that you can create or not, and like put it for this case, put ADA on hold, so you can create like this stable coin that's going to be paid for the US dollar, for example. So the end is just capabilities in the smart contract language, and Plutus definitely has everything that's required.
Thanks, Nico. Okay, so we're going to move over to our Reddit questions now. We want to thank every Reddit user for dropping questions. We always open up a subreddit for all of our guests where you can ask your questions, and we're going to ask away. So, Rick, why don't you take us away with the first question? We're going to try to do a rapid fire round because we're towards the latter half of the podcast.
Roger, will do. Okay, the first one is from Tony from Shoshone. Thank you, Tony. We appreciate it. He says, "Hi, Nico. Love the work you do and your team does. I appreciate the extra time you take to listen to the community needs and how you're willing to help make needed connections to move the community projects forward. Has the Yoroi team had a chance to check compatibility with the Haskell implementation of Shelley? What challenges, if any, do you see coming with Yoroi being ready to support the Haskell implementation, vice the Rust implementation?" Thank you for that, Tony. Nico, what do you have to say about that? Ready for?
Yeah. So right now, Seva is the person inside Emurgo that's handling everything related to Cardano. And we already started working on this. So everything that's in Haskell works for like normal, like computers, but everything, Yoroi works with JavaScript. It works in Chrome and also works in iOS and Android. So we actually need a JavaScript library. So we just started like working on this. So we are going to have support for everything that's related to the Shelly Haskell testnet. So that's looking well, and I think we're going to be on time.
Okay.
Sounds good. So basically, if you have, I have a JavaScript product, and there is a Rust node or a Haskell node, it's not going to care. It'll, as long as the interface is correct, it'll plug into it.
No. So, for example, if we have Rust, it needs to compile to WebAssembly, and that could be read and interact with normal JavaScript. But if we have Haskell, we need to convert that to something that JavaScript can interact because it can't interact with Haskell. So right now we are working in a JavaScript library that's compiled from Haskell.
Roger. And Seba's working on it, so I think we're in pretty good shape.
Yes, we are in pretty good shape.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you, Tony from Shoshone. That's a frequent flyer on the Cardano Effect podcast. So the next question is from Pradip Tonk, and Pradip Tonk asks, "What new projects is Emurgo working on? Is there anything big for 2020?"
So one thing that we just released is that we have a partnership. We are helping a government at a country level from Uzbekistan, which is like pretty amazing. And we are helping them innovate in different areas. So we are proposing a lot of projects, and the idea is that these projects are going to be like powered by Cardano. So I'm excited to see what's going on with that. I don't have personal knowledge of a lot of that stuff going on because the Tokyo office is taking care of that. But later on, we're going to have more news that we're going to be releasing as best releases.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. Big stuff for 2020, Uzbekistan. All right. And thank you, Pradatonic. The next one comes from Breaker59. He says, "Hi, Nico. Thanks for the hard work. As CTO, I believe you're working closely with the Uzbek government. And so what can you tell us about the development so far and which phase you guys at now? Cheers." So just basically where are we at now with Uzbekistan? Is there anything else you know about it?
So right now it's like really early. What happened is that they were able to raise money from like external investors because usually like governments, they don't have that much money, but in the same way that highways are created in terms that someone else does the entire development, and then the government gives them exclusivity and some sort of like monopoly that's going to be like set in a specific range of time, so they can make the money back. So there are like a lot of like different business models that they can be put in place, and this attracts investors that can bring money, and actually all these projects can be financed. So this part is like really like pretty developed, and now the part is like there are like some specific projects that are really interesting, and now they're bringing more projects that we could also do. So it's still like in the planning phase of everything.
Okay.
All right, cool. Thanks. I think that answers it. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Brinker59. Next question is from Let0070. What is it like working with Sebastian?
It's great. He's like, he calculates all the answers that he's going to give, and he's like really precise. So sometimes when you read something from him, every letter there is for a reason. It's like there's not extra letters, there's not letters less than expected. It's everything like really good. And he works really hard, and also he likes to talk to everyone in the team. So it's one of the people that creates a culture in Emurgo. So he's like really important.
Awesome.
Yeah, and he's very technically proficient, because if sometimes when I say technically wrong things on Telegram, he fixes it. He corrects me.
Yeah, he also corrects me sometimes. So
that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right. Thank you, Let0070. The next one is from Caramel Covered Karma. And the question is, what are your responsibilities as member of the Cardano Foundation? What are you responsible for?
So we are responsible for many things, but basically to give like something like really fast is that the Cardano Foundation has 5 mission statements. So let's see if I remember that correctly. Driving the adoption of Cardano blockchain, shape legislations, create a global Cardano community, stakeholder accountability, and also facilitating partnerships. So those are the 5. So basically it's like putting everything in place in the Cardano Foundation so the executive team can succeed in pushing these 5 mission statements.
Okay.
Awesome. And so you're providing that technical expertise that's needed to make good decisions to meet those 5 mission statements.
Personally, that's the part that I bring to the Cardano Foundation, because if you see the other council members, they're like pretty good in some specific areas, but we were missing someone that was like more technical and that has more expertise with like what things are valuable right now in the space. And that's like experience and knowledge that I have got through our acceleration program. So that's the part that I come in and I try to bring like my perspective that complements the other council's perspective.
Excellent. That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah. Rick, I mean, Nico was telling us all about these DeFi solutions throughout this podcast. I mean, if the foundation ever partners with some company in the future or decides to fund some project that brings, I don't know, a stable coin or some other revolutionary project to Cardano, Nico's the perfect person to have in place. He's passionate about it and he knows how to talk about it. And this is what we need.
Yeah, we got a good team there, because you got Nathan and Hendrik know the law. You got Nico with the technical side. You got Manmeet with the business side. Now we got Tamar with the human side and the interrelationship side. Good coverage. Yes. Sounds good to me. Yeah. Sounds like a basketball team I could go in favor of.
Yeah, sounds like it. So thank you, Caramel Covered Karma. The last question is from Cal, and Cal is our audio tech.
And it's from Homer.
It's from Homer. Yes, Homer from Carl. So I'd like to thank Kyle. Okay, Kyle does a lot of work, and also Christian. Kyle and Christian, they're the unsung heroes of the Cardano Effect podcast. So if you see them around, please tell them thank you, because this podcast wouldn't function if it wasn't for those two. Anyway, so the question from Homer J says, any plans by the Cardano Foundation or IOHK to tackle in the near future the subject of pool saturation? For example, providing some functionality or tools to help pool operators protect early delegators.
So this is more of like a question for IOHK, and particularly for like everything that's related to the protocol. My personal opinion, that I haven't read any documentation related to like blocking that, because it will be like censorship, and that feels like against like decentralization. But this is like my knee-jerk response for this question, because I haven't thought like deeply about this, but every decision that you have in the protocol has so many ramifications. So it's like really tricky to do even like little changes. So this is like a pretty good question for like the IHK research team. But if I will have to say something, again, I will say that it will be like censorship. So you just need to follow the best interest, because if you're going to put extra money and you're going to be receiving less money, it doesn't make sense that someone is going to be doing that, especially if they have big amounts. So what would you expect? And what has been happening is that they're going to like be moving their money around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So you can't use code to solve human nature all the time. Sometimes you got to let people make their decisions. Sometimes they make good decisions, sometimes they don't. And then you say, okay, well, you made a bad decision. You got to pay for it.
Yeah, like
that's what happens. You're going to lose money if you do dumb stuff, right?
Exactly.
And if you do smart decisions, you're going to make money. So you can protect people from themselves. You can give them enough rope to hang himself. I prefer the latter.
Yep, exactly.
So I like... Yeah,
that was a great question from Homer. Thank you, Homer. And we'll see if we can get more information from, I think he's looking for a software engineering solution. So that would have to come from IOHK. That was a good question, though.
Excellent. Okay, we have a few more minutes. So I wanted to lighten the atmosphere. Well, actually, I had one serious question before. Thank you to all the Reddit questions, by the way. Great Reddit questions. We really appreciate it. I'd like to ask you personally, how easy or difficult has it been building out Yoroi during the ITN? Both Rick and I are pool operators. We know that the ITN has been plagued with issues. And how easy is it to adapt Yoroi week after week? I mean, thumbs up or thumbs down? How's your experience?
Yeah.
I think you know the answer.
Because I got to say, the first couple weeks of the ITN there, Yoroi got wrecked. It did. I was like, Yoroi was the go-to guy all last year. If people had problems in Daedalus, I'd say, all right, we'll just use Yoroi. And then like from the middle December to the end of December, it was like, oh my gosh, man, it was bad. Like, I mean, you couldn't use Yoroi almost. I felt really bad for you guys. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It was like really difficult because we didn't have enough time for like prepare Yoroi and the Daedalus launch. So we had to like launch as well as soon as possible. So and also a lot of people in the team, they already have like planned vacations. So we were like 3 people sleeping like 4 hours or 5 per day, putting everything together. We received some help from the community because also we have some issues basically with the node, like keeping track, because a lot of times the node will be like in another fork. It was dead. And basically it's something that we're like really good at as developers. We understand blockchain and stuff like that, but there's some stuff that were like more DevOps that we needed some help. And some people from the community were like really good and like they help us like to improve this. And that's why now Yoroi is working like really well. Especially I want to send kudos to Marek Mahut.
Marcus and Merrick.
Marcus and Merrick. Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you to both of them.
Yes. And Yoroi is doing extremely well now. Massive, great improvements. Thank you, Seba. Thank you, Ruslan. Thank you, Nikolas, for that.
And also we have other people in the team, Rob, Nicola, Marta, Shin, that have been helping. And even we got some extra help from Vacuum Labs. So that was like really good. And this is really interesting because even though Vacuum Labs has Adalite, we work like pretty close and we try to support each other because as Emurgo, we don't see anyone else that's working in the ecosystem as competitor, but actually like we are in this together. So we want them to succeed.
Oh,
awesome. Well, thanks for the insight on Yoroi.
Next question. Charles in his AMA, in AMAs before, he talks sometimes about price briefings. Like every day he wakes up and in the first thing in the morning, he gets a brief from the IOHK team about like the price of ADA. I don't know, future forecast of ADA. I'm not really sure what he was referring to, Does Emurgo have that same culture? Do you wake up and do you have like a price alert? Like, does Emurgo care about the price of ADA? That's the question I'm trying to get at. Is it something that you guys talk about, guys and girls on the team?
No. Obviously, we care about the price of ADA, like medium term, long term, but price from day to day, for me, I don't care because the market moves like so crazy, and at the end, you want to bring value, you want to bring like cool stuff that is going to start like creating a trend. But as you know, trends are like this, but you have this noise that goes up and down if you're receiving prices every day. I don't know what they're receiving. I don't want to talk about that, but at least on our side, we are not checking prices.
Okay. Are employees? Do you feel? I mean, I guess this is a personal question, so you can answer it if you're not, if you want to, or if you choose not to, that's fine as well. Do you think employees at Emurgo are active crypto traders? Do you think they invest in ADA? Do you think they're focused on other projects? I mean, I kind of have a semblance of what's going on within IOHK and their employees as far as like whether or not they're interested in speculating as well, or is it more just like a business relationship where people go into work to work for Emurgo?
I don't know if people trade because I feel like weird about asking that type of stuff, but the feeling that I get is that most of the people in Emurgo, they hold like ADA because they're like true believers in the project, which is like really important because you want people that believe in the project to be working for this and not people that like, I'm just working for like a salary, but I don't care. That's not the case. The feeling that I get that most of the people in the team have ADA, so everyone wants ADA to go up.
Okay. Good to hear. And then a personal question. What happens, what's life look like for you after Cardano? After we hit our smart contract goals, after we hit governance goals, what will you, do you plan to stay with Emurgo for a long period of time and focus on other projects? Or will you stay with Cardano and kind of ride it, even though they may have, like they may need some future developments in this area or this area? Or is it something like once the mission is complete, you're going to take your talents elsewhere and focus on something else?
I know. I just like, we still need to get Shelly, Goyen. Then we are going to have Basho, ProleteR. So it's like a long way to go, and I haven't thought that much about it. I never know what I'm going to be doing the next 6 months, but right now, like, still here, and I've been working with Emurgo for over 2 years now. So,
okay, yeah, I see Emurgo is more perpetual because it's like when you build an aircraft for Boeing, you're going to be flying them aircraft for a very long time. Emurgo is going to have to be business consulting for a very, very long time, business development, right?
True.
Yeah, that's the part that interests me a little bit more is that working with companies, and the idea is that probably I'm going to be working with like a lot of enterprises and trying to bring like Cardano to like more use cases. Mm-hmm. And I like that because I like to understand systems and like bring solutions. And most of like the solutions that I see out there that are like broken, I could, for example, talk about how to solve the ticketing problem using blockchain, but or like supply chain issues, and that stuff is like super interesting. And I know that I can do something way, way better, like 10x better than other solutions. So probably I'm going to be focusing on stuff like that in different industries.
Yeah. So hypothetically, like 5 years out, it could be Visa or MasterCard or the New York Stock Exchange going to Emurgo and saying, hey, Emurgo, how do we plug our stuff into your Cardano thingy over there, right? You know, it could be.
I hope so.
Could be. That's what we're hoping for. Make it run bigger, better, faster, stronger, and decentralized all at the same time. That's what we're looking for. All right. Yeah. Good questions, Philippe. Thank you.
I got that reference quickly. So yeah, that's it for my questions. That's it for my questions. I had those last questions. I really wanted to know what Nico's future plans are, even though he has to give a certain response for the Cardano Effect podcast. But I appreciate it. I appreciate
Emurgo is going to be competing with Wells Fargo. That's what he wants to say.
Rick, did you have any questions?
No, I'm great. That's all set.
Okay.
Nikolas, I learned a lot. Always great pleasure having you on the podcast. You're welcome to come back anytime.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm glad
People
that
love to
this
people
was
love to have you on the
good.
podcast.
And Nico, any last words for the listeners and viewers of the Cardano Effect podcast? Anything you wanted to update us with?
If anything related to this podcast that people still have questions, feel free to ask me in Reddit. I'm always like checking it, and I'm like happy to like explain things a little bit further.
Okay, sounds good. So I'd like to sign everyone off. This is episode 76 of the Cardano Effect podcast. We had Nicolás Arqueros on. He is the Chief Technology Officer at Emurgo and a council member at the Cardano Foundation. He's also the Senior Investment Advisor at D-Lab. Thank you so much. This is the third time on the Cardano Effect podcast. You are a veteran of this podcast, and you are always welcome on this program. I'd like to remind everyone, if you've made it this far, please hit that subscribe button. Please share this video, like, comment, do whatever you need to do to push this video to as many mediums as possible. We appreciate you. And until the next episode of the Cardano Effect podcast, bye, everyone.